Howdy! It is Sunday, it is afternoon, and we are a hair's breadth away from the kickoff of NaNoWriMo. So with me today, I have some regulars. We have Des and Sarah are joining Doc and Sako and I, and we're going to be talking about our NaNoWriMo experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we're going to see who's actually ready and who's, not feeling it this year. So let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. Let's go round robin. I don't know if y'all see everybody. I'm seeing me, Doc, Sarah, Des, and Sako. Is that the order everybody sees?
Yep.
Okay. Let's go round robin, starting with Doc. Introduce yourself and tell people what if you're in for NaNoWriMo.
Hi, I'm Doc Coleman. Normally I write steampunk comedy adventure, but this year I'm in for NaNoWriMo, and I literally less than 5 minutes ago created my NaNoWriMo project for this year, which is a young adult fantasy novel called The Brightlands.
Ooh.
So this is a project I first started back in like 2012, and now I'm coming at it to do a complete rewrite.
Nice.
2012.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Wow.
That was my alternate project while I was still trying to finish out Perils of Prague. So.
Wow. So Sarah?
I am Sarah Scharnweber. I don't know if I'm doing Nano this year, but I also decided I was doing Vlogtober on October 2nd, so I'm helping someone with prompts for their Nano. Like I have friends who are doing a Nano thing,
Sure.
and I'm doing prompts for their Nano thing, but I don't know that I'm doing a Nano thing.
Okay.
I guess it's my turn. I'm Sako Tumi, also known as Cass Voit. I write horror, and I'm a witch, and I'm a graphic designer, and sometimes I combine those three things. I am actually working on 3 projects this Nano, so I don't know if I'm going to make progress on any one of them. We'll see.
Be a rebel and count what you get on each.
I should have a document where I just cut and paste my words, so I can get the proper word count, but
yeah,
we'll see how it goes.
Okay. And Des?
I'm Des Desdemona Rose on various social media sites. I've been working on a speculative fiction series for like the last 2 years, starting 2 nanos ago. And this year I'm going to be nanoing the second book of the series while also editing the first book of the series. So we'll see how it goes.
While editing?
Yeah. I'm limiting my word count on the nano side because I'm in like several critique groups, so I have to have stuff for them on the editing side. So we'll see how it goes.
Exciting. Super exciting. And I'm your host, Morgan Hazelwood, and I am doing NaNoWriMo. I am doing what I call my space fantasy, because there's the thought that if I don't get the current space fantasy that I am actively querying to find an agent, that maybe I should have a second book in the same world if I'm going to self-pub. So it's going to be 3 points of view. It's only tangentially related, but definitely set in the same time period and section of space as the previous one, because one of the characters is the very background character in the other story. And yeah, so I don't think I know my characters well enough, but I'm hoping to figure something out in the next 2 days. The new one is called, working title, obviously, A Song in the Aether Stream. So yeah.
So I just went to the Nano website and I was like, well, maybe if I look at stuff, maybe I'll decide I want to do it. And I looked at the local events, and it looks like the local events are digital.
Oh.
We've got a mix for our region.
Oh, yeah?
It's weird. It's just, it's weird because, like, it's digital. It's on somebody's Twitch channel. Like,
yeah.
that's not, to me, that is not a local event. To me, that is an internet event.
Yes.
I get that, but I think
I put this on my
pandemic-
local.
I think the lockdown and changed people's attitudes towards local get-togethers.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just like literally not one.
Yeah.
Real? Okay. Yeah. No.
Yeah,
That
they're all on Twitch. They're all on the ML's Twitch, I guess.
it could be that nobody else in your region has set any up. I know I'm out in Manassas, and sometimes
Right.
we'll do like one at the Barnes and Noble, and so I might put that up on the thing. So
Yeah, it's just odd. It's just odd because like that seems to me to be the antithesis of what that events were for. Like, I feel like Nano should have separate places for like a digital event versus an in-person event, and they should be separated so that you can see them. So that like if you're looking to go in person, because the only reason I would engage these people I don't know would be in person, because I already have internet writer friends.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it just seems weird because of that.
So what is it that you get out of the in-person events? I mean,
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. That's the
I like
question.
them.
Is like I feel like in person would at the very least make me leave my house, which I don't do. There are a few writers in town I know personally that I like. There are also a few who are twats, but like that's just kind of the way that a group of people's gonna go.
Yeah.
Like,
Some people are gonna vibe with you, and some people are just not.
Right. And then also there's like a bunch of people in town who don't write novels and stuff who wouldn't be in this corner. But the other thing is that locally the only in-person stuff I really know about is mostly paid, which I
don't know. That's weird.
So, like the guild is paid. Like you have to be a paid member to go to the guild stuff.
Weird.
Last I knew, like it's been a long time since I looked because that turned me off, and I was just like, man.
Yeah,
it would turn me off too. Yeah.
Sometimes that's kind of necessary when you're having in-person events, because unless you've got a space that you're willing to bring people into,
and that's why my local group goes to coffee shops.
Like, I think that's where they go.
Yeah,
I think they go to the coffee shop and the library.
But how are they charging? Like
no, they're not charging for the events. You have to be a paid member. To go to the events. So you're not paying for the events. You're paying for the membership.
My local library doesn't have a membership. Oh, I mean, there's a Right by the Rails, which is a local writing group. And that's an annual membership. But
yeah, I don't even know if this group's still together after the pandemic, to be real.
But I guess it all depends on when you pay for the membership, what does that money go for?
Yeah, well, and that's one of the local problems is that stuff's always real gray around here.
But I know, like having run a writing group myself, there's costs for listing the group on Meetup, and if you're trying to find a space to meet, it's really hard to find a public space that doesn't require some kind of money lay down in order to reserve it.
It looks like a lot of this has changed. I did go look. And I know it used to be expensive, and now it's like the student membership's like $15, and it was not, because I was a student when I was really considering paying for it, and I could not afford it, and I had 3 jobs.
Yeah, no.
Like so they must have, maybe the pandemic changed some of it.
Yeah, like the Science Fiction Fantasy Guild thing that I volunteer for. Yeah, there's a membership. Yeah, it costs some actual money, but the only thing between people showing up to events and people who are members, you don't get a vote for who the president and secretary and stuff are. Otherwise, you can go to any event. And
I have no problem paying for things.
Right? Yeah.
That's not my issue. I don't have a problem. Like the $35 regular membership, that's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
Like I have a problem when like I'm struggling to like get by and I'd like some writing support, and they were like, well, if you don't have any money, then we're not going to talk to you.
That's not cool at all.
And I was like, well, I'm in college, so I guess
I
I'll
had
go
the
over here
problem.
then.
I had the problem with the writers group where they didn't like horror,
Oh yeah, yep,
and
that's
that's
it.
what I write.
Or it's just not valid at all.
Right.
Like, and they'll do that with horror, with comics, with like there are very specific corners that people will just decide are invalid, and then write
They
you
would
off
write
as
down
you are.
their comments, and then I would get
like
a bunch
those
of
master's
index
programs
cards.
that decide that anything that's genre and isn't
Yes.
a strictly lit fic is not worthy.
Yeah.
And then you end up with things like World Fantasy Convention, which is an annual thing in which they try to be as professional as possible so that they can show that they're to their, MLS programs that they're legitimate authors. And I'm like, you're writing fantasy. Can we have fun with it? Can we pretend like we like playing dress up and stuff on
Well, and like 80% of legitimate authors show up to their legitimate author jobs, like reading their legitimate author books in jeans and a t-shirt, so you can legitimate that in your eye. Like,
And
honestly, from experience in going to conventions and both trying to dress up like an author and then being comfortable wearing the t-shirt that your audience resonates with is the best thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Nope, totally forgot what I was gonna say.
Sorry.
How have you been enjoying in-person stuff, Des?
I like it. And like for me, like if I'm at home, there's like a million distractions, especially since I have a bunch of pets, which some of them might walk by at some point. And all of my stuff is on my computer, but if I'm just on my laptop, like in a coffee shop or someplace, there's actually fewer distractions for me than at home, which is probably backwards than what it is for some people, but I get focused.
There's the distraction of the space, and then there's the distraction of, I really should do those dishes, and I should kind of work another half hour because I switched over laundry for a while, and
I do the opposite.
Okay.
In the write-ins are great for talking shop, but I do no writing.
I will never go to another library write-in. Like, I went to a library write-in and it was silent with no talking. Like, right. I'm happy to sprint, but if I'm going to be sitting in a room for 2 hours in utter silence, I can do that on my own. I
could do that on my own and jam my own tunes.
Right. I don't go to write-ins to not talk to people.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand some people want to stay focused, and I'm very happy to do sprints. But
I'll idea bounce and stuff like that. I talk to other people about their stories, and if they have any hangups, they need help, kind of hurdling over.
Yeah.
That's what I find write-ins useful for. Yeah. But
I get something out of being around other creative people being creative, whether or not it's directly like something I am reading or whatever. Like I just get something out of it. Yeah. Like I have a lot of friends who are in bands, and I used to go see their bands and then go home and write. Like there's just a thing that I get out of that, and I think that's kind of what I would like out of an in-person thing. But that also does not look like something I am going to get without doing it myself.
I'm sorry. I do know when I go to my open mic night for writers, people will be talking, like giving their poems and stuff, and it'll inspire a thought, and I'll be taking notes, and then I'll go home and want to write them out. So
yeah.
Like
let me pop over to the comments real quick. They've been super patient. Hello, Rita, and welcome. Raven's like, oh my God, we have all the people. Doc says we're all in our places with bright, shiny faces. Oh, I guess I can let you.
The poet didn't even know it.
Raven is checking in after spending, oh my gosh, 5 hours crying his way through watching the ending of a playthrough of Disco Elysium.
Disco Elysium is a really good game. I haven't made it to the end yet, so I'll have to look up an LP of it.
Yeah.
Because Steam and my computer don't want to play.
Sure. Sarah, introduce us to your kitty. Hi.
She hates this, but we're doing it, and she doesn't like to be held. She hates being held more than she hates the hat.
Thank you
She's
for
so funny. She came over and bullied me, so I put a hat on her, but she doesn't care.
Catechus is just napping between the door to the sunroom and where I am right now. So he got some lap time. He got some snuggles after I shut him in my bedroom all day yesterday. I put his litter box in his cat tree and I opened the window and I gave him gushy food. But he only escaped once, and that was my sister's fault. She thought the go away did not apply to her.
Yeah.
And
she kind of paid the price for it, didn't she?
He didn't get her face, but there were claws, and they may have gotten her scalp. So yeah, because there were a lot of people, and he was freaked out, and somebody he didn't know was picking him up, and it was he was not happy with us. But she has a 2-year-old who's potty training, and the bathroom was full, so like there were reasons, but still.
Yeah.
So, but he snuggled all last night. I don't think he was mad at me at all. So
you probably blamed it all on your sister.
He was napping and chill, except that, when the door opened. So he wasn't like yowling to get out the whole time. So back to the comments. Let's see. Felicia is here. Hello, Dreaming Truth. And Raven says that he's the same way as Des. He actually gets way more writing done at a cafe or coffee shop. Can't write at home to save his life. Can edit at work, though. That's pretty cool. Oh. So I wanted to do some sort of game things and stuff. One of the things I do as... one of the things I stole from a writing conference I went to is having a list of adjectives for characters. In the workshop, we all came up with 3 adjectives and we tossed them in a bag, and then we grabbed 3 adjectives and we created a character based on that. Because a lot of times when you're writing, it's really easy to, if you run into a barista, just kind of, grab something straight out of something and not have a well-rounded character. And so one of the ways, especially for secondary and tertiary characters, to make sure that they're not just like very two-dimensional is to have adjectives that don't necessarily match, if that makes sense. So it's, maybe not exactly what you're expecting. So I was going to ask if y'all would help me fill out a table that I will share with people.
Oh.
And yeah, so in the comments or in person, give me some adjectives. Short are they? Oh,
that static is bonkers.
I think your microphone's a little loose at the connection.
Mine.
So okay, we've got one from Dreaming Truth. We've got handsome.
Character attributes. Okay. You just said adjectives. The first thing that came to my mind was flaming. So that could be a character attribute, but
I'm tossing on here. They can be physical, they can be emotional, they can be,
agile.
insecure. Gifted.
Arrogant. Naive. Wait, can I spell naive?
Starts with an N. Naieve. Something like that.
Yeah.
Humble.
Ooh.
Since we've thrown arrogant into the mix, we might as well have somebody.
Stoic.
The vast. No.
Maybe kind of character. Raven asks, can a person be bucolic? Let's see.
Person can be acerbic.
I've been called caustic.
Okay.
I don't like them. I don't find you caustic.
I was going to say, what did they do to piss you off at the time?
Yeah.
Or did you just not bend over backwards for them?
Also that.
Yeah. Raven says, okay, now this is getting personal.
Both bucolic and accommodating, right? No, you already got spontaneous out.
We did. So, impulsive and spontaneous, I think, go along, are pretty close to the same.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why I was saying accommodating. But
Rude.
oh,
Yeah.
rude.
Creepy.
Mm.
Fart joke.
Flatulent.
Clueless. He said, representing every guy everywhere. No.
Domesticated.
Oh.
But, sorry. 2 seconds. Let me get rid of them.
Disingenuous. Yeah. Though we have the alternate to
Block. Okay. Where was I? Sorry about that.
Obnoxious.
Speaking of bots, what's the characteristic for someone who is always looking for the next big thing? Like, you know, they're not quite a con man, but you know,
Opportunistic?
okay.
Yeah.
They're the people.
That may not be what you're looking for. It's related, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the people who will do, you know,
Cutthroat?
oh, I was just more thinking the people who will do maybe not multi-level marketing or like selling, you know,
The people who are looking
points.
for the easy path.
Yeah.
They're looking for the next get-rich-quick scheme.
Yeah. In my head, the quintessential one, even though he's not a like there's the gambler style who's always like has a get-rich-quick scheme, but then there's Papa from Little House on the Prairie, who's like, all we have to do is move to the next town and things will be better in there. And the problem with moving to find yourself is no matter where you go, you're always there.
The grass is always greener.
Yeah. Ooh, let's do a hippie. Or let's maybe spiritual. Which
There's
can
always
go in
woo-woo,
many
right?
different routes. I'm sorry. Say again.
Woo-woo. You're talking about more spiritual-like things, but
Right.
yeah.
rule-minded.
It's highbrow.
Oh, okay. Raven said he was not looking for bucolic, which means rural. He was looking for a word that meant like prone to sickness or coughing that kind of looked like it, and he doesn't know what word it is
Colicky?
now. Colicky.
You could just go with sickly, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robust.
Oh.
If we're doing sickly, right?
Robust is good. I was also thinking jobs worth. So as a counterpart to the person who is always looking for the get rich quick scheme, your job's worth is always there to put in the work and believes in the process and
Hardworking.
Yep.
We've got rule-minded and hardworking. I think that covers both sides.
Okay. One more slot.
Okay. Oh.
Swarthy.
Swarthy is more of a description of a complexion.
Smarmy.
Just
Marmy, though. That
Marmy.
works.
Yeah.
okay. There we go. So you can do this any way you want. You can roll 2 die and go to the joint. You can just juncture. Sorry. Like if you roll a 3 and a 3, they'd be tall. Or you can roll, 66 and go down or across, whichever way works for you. Or 3 die, whatever. So anyway, I am going to.
Or you could be adventurous and flip a coin, and heads you
Right.
take a column, and tails you take a row, and then
Right.
roll 1d6 and find out who your character.
So I'll share that in just a second. One of the other things I wanted to play with is I made some charts a couple years ago when somebody's like, I don't know where to get started. And so I have it on my NaNoWriMo resources page. But here we go. Are we just not going to open? There we go. Good enough. Okay. You give me 3 seconds. Okay. So I don't know if anybody here is stuck on characters or secondary characters, but whoop. Oh, I was sharing the tab and not the window. Give me a second. I thought I was sharing the entire window. Here we go. Okay. So we've got our chart right here. Just trying to make it bigger, and instead it jumps size, and now I can't grab the bottom of the screen. That's exciting. There we go. A little more. Oh my gosh. My mouse is usually not this cantankerous. Okay. So if you are stuck and you need a who, let's see. My mom's first name is Karen. So I would have a lazy, and my dad's first name is Mark, a lazy but patient person. So for your main characters, do you have vices and virtues set up for them?
Absolutely. And usually there are more vices than virtues at the beginning of the story.
Yeah. I love the theory that, the best characters are where their virtues become a vice because they're put into a situation in which it doesn't help them at all.
Right.
It's an impediment. So what about you, Doc?
See, I'm coming back to this after quite a while. Let's see. I've got kind of a little character draft in terms of the character's personality and their background and some of their conflicts. So I haven't really built it up in terms of vices and virtues. But yeah, I do kind of have some notes in terms of what are the characters' good points and bad points.
Sure. Okay. What about you, Sarah? I know you do shorter stuff.
Yeah, I don't really do vices and virtues, partly because I try really hard not to think about things in that way. So in general, I don't just, and some of that may come from like I worked in mental health for a really long time, and so some things you may think are a bad thing, but then you apply them somewhere else and they're actually a good thing for you. So I don't really apply it in this way, but like when a character walks in, and worth noting I'm a discovery writer, but when a character walks in, they basically have several traits when they walk in. So
Sure. Okay. That's pretty cool. Desdemona?
Yeah, I also don't have vices and virtues like this. I don't sort of like Sarah. I haven't worked in mental health, but I have a psychology degree, and I listen to podcasts and stuff on psychology on a regular basis. So I have all my characters psychoanalyzed in an unprofessional way.
I partake of astrology quite a bit, so sometimes I'll like map out their star chart, which usually expresses like what kind of personality they would have.
Okay. That sounds like a fun way of doing it. So I really want to get more into figuring out exactly what my character's vices and virtues are, because I think that gives me more insight into them, and sometimes I'm a little lacking in that. And
I think sometimes those kinds of things occur to me after the story is done, where I start to look more at it analytically because I am a discovery writer, so that does make a difference into how the process works.
Yeah.
So when I'm editing, sometimes I will look more analytically at things like, does somebody who's lived through X, Y, and Z really behave this way?
Yeah.
Because they should have adopted these traits as coping skills for these traumas.
Yeah.
And how do those, but I don't typically think about that before or during the writing itself.
Okay. I think for me, I end up with generally very sweet, trusting characters, and I want to try and get away from that. And so I'm trying to like lean into the vice and virtue thought system, at least, to try and help me make more different types of main characters, and also make sure that my main characters, since I'm doing 3 of them, make sure that they're not the same person in different situations. Like, yeah, this person is a mom and dealing with her mom doing this, but like, I don't want her to be the same type of person who would react the same way in her cousin's situation, So I think I have written characters that are a little too similar, and I'm trying to stretch my wings. I really struggle to write villain characters.
Oh man, we should talk.
Yeah. Because even when I have one, yeah, even when I have one, I start like justifying everything they do, and
well, that's the thing. Like,
I know they justify them, but I have to make sure that just because they're justifying them doesn't mean what they're doing is right.
Yeah, just because you have a justification doesn't mean that it flies.
I mean, but it does.
Or, I mean, no one thinks they're the bad guy. Right?
Yeah.
So, my conflict might be, like in Hope's chest. Like Carson was a decent dude.
Yeah.
But he was the conflict. So
yeah, I get that. I totally get that.
Man.
But the other thing you have to realize about villains is, unless you're deliberately building them as a recurring antagonist, that they need to have the biggest impact for the least amount of stage time. So
Okay.
that kind of means that your villain needs to be the most interesting character in your book, because you're going to spend a lot more time with your hero. You've got to bring the villain across really quickly and make a big punch.
Okay.
And actually, I this is part of the reason why I love villains that just chew the scenery when they appear. And I get away with that really easy when I write steampunk. That's going to be a little bit different for me going into YA fantasy, but little bit different. But I still want to have a character there who's just like, "Hi, I'm wearing the sign that says obvious antagonist, and I'm going to chew the scenery for a bit."
Yeah. So let me pop into the comments real quick. Emma swung by. Hello and welcome. Aw, and thanks for button booping. So Raven was saying that he doesn't tend to map out his characters that much ahead of time. Mostly he just determines what his characters would do as situations arise in the story and try to establish their personalities based on that. Yeah. I usually go in with a pretty good understanding of my character and their place in the world. And right now I feel like I'm struggling with that for my new story. And so I'm trying to be a little more analytical than I usually am. Just I have all these blog posts about how different people do it. And, so I'm trying to be like, what are tools other people have used to flesh this stuff out? Because I want better characters. So I like my characters, but I think they're not the draw of the story necessarily. And I want them to be more of the draw of the story, I think.
I know there's people that do like the MBTI test and the Enneagram and like all those random personality tests on their characters just to get a different feel for them.
As far as I'm concerned, that's pretty much all those tests are good for. Because every time I take that test, I get something different.
Oh, really?
It's all hooey.
Yeah, well, and it depends on your mood when you take it, and there's.
I know I've talked about my approach is that I tend to build characters and world build at the same time, because for me the characters shape the world and the world shapes the characters, and
absolutely
you've got to have the right forces to build a character who's going to go and approach stuff with this attitude. But then you can also run down a lot of other things. It's like, what are the secondary and tertiary implications of living in a world like this?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think I really enjoy world building, and writing a second time in the same world leaves me a little. I mean, I came up with a new alien species, so running into detective, but so coming up with a new culture is going to be exciting. But I think I'm mostly going to tackle it as I come across it. So let me pop into the comments real quick. Hello, Documented Nerd. Thanks for swinging by. And Jordan Mahoney, The Blind World, swung by and said, hi. How's everyone today? And what are you guys talking about? We are talking about NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month. Some of us are getting ready to try to write 50,000 words of a story, about 200 pages in 1 month. And some of us are just writing at our normal pace and seeing what happens. So we're talking about our different approaches and how we're getting ready. So let's see. Documented Nerd says, for me, I usually take my outline to a point and then pants a slice of life with each character to get into their head. Oh, nice. I do like when I get really stuck in Nano, I'll take a character and do like what I call a vignette that isn't based in the story, just something in their world to help me understand the character more.
It's funny is like my chapter 0, as it were, chapter 1, just to get the story started, just to kind of introduce the character and feel the character out and flesh out the world. And then I'll continue writing the rest of the book. And then when I'm done, I'll go back and rewrite chapter 1 so that, it's conducive.
I do something very similar. Is I will just pick a point and start writing, and I know that is probably going to get cut in the next edit, but I look at it as it's a vital part of the process because this is the scene I need to write to get my head in the right frame of mind to write the rest of the book.
Sure.
So I can't skip it. I got to do it. So I might as well count the words as part of my first draft for NaNoWriMo and then cut it later. So.
Yeah. So Doc, I commented earlier this week. I was writing about the tools I use to get started for a new manuscript. And one of the things I always need before I get started is an opening sentence that sets the mood and the tone and the voice. And you're like, you don't need that. Like I know it'll often get cut or edited or moved somewhere else in the story, but I need a launching point. So does anybody else need like a good first sentence before they can get started, or do you just meander your way into it?
I'll come up with a good first sentence when I go back to rewrite the.
So you just start with anything? It doesn't have the voice, right?
I start in the middle of something.
Oh, yeah.
Which usually the character will express something that is context specific. And if the reader is interested in that summary, then yippee skippy, I succeeded.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, it's not a first sentence, but it's usually a starting scene, and like I said, that's my entry point into the world. But it will probably get cut before in the next edit.
Okay. Do you ever take those cut scenes and like toss them at an anthology as like an outtake or something?
Yes, I've actually did one that was. I forget exactly what I named it. Something like 6 Impossible Things Before, or I think it was Before Breakfast. Literally, was a scene that was my starting point for Kindred of Kali, which I later cut it because it was a nothing in the middle of travel, but it had some interesting stuff about the characters. It was still funny, and I was able to have it stand alone as a short story. So,
Documented Nerd has to hop off. Thanks for coming. Documented Nerd said it's really interesting and has to run, but hopes we do more of these during NaNoWriMo. We usually do more writing sprints, but we do talk craft in between the sprints. So yeah, every Sunday, and I'm probably going to do some pop-ups during the month. So thanks for coming. What about you, Sarah? Do you need a starting point, or do you figure it out as you go along? I mean, you said you figure it out as you go along, but...
Yeah, so I have several short stories that are out in various places that are opened with the actual prompt I started with. Like that's literally the line that you read first is the prompt that I got when I started.
Do you like to work from prompts you get elsewhere, or do you give yourself these prompts?
Usually I get them from elsewhere. I used to keep a notebook. I used to hang out at diners all the time. Yeah. And what I would do is I had these regular friends and I would have them just write first lines for me. And so I just had a notebook and I'd say, give me a number, and I'd grab that number and I'd write a story. But for novels, there are novels that I have started where they start with me being like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to write today. I guess I'm supposed to write something. So here I am writing something. This is something. And I wrote those words, so I'm taking them.
Hey, yeah. How about you, Des?
I'm probably, I guess, the opposite of Sarah, because I'm like a planner, even though I never stick with the original plan, but I kind of plan it all out. And then I really like prologues, and so I always start, I guess, sort of my way to get into the story is I start with a prologue, but it's a prologue that's like before the main events, time wise. So it's and you're usually slightly more world building, not like heavy world building, but it's parts of the world that will never show up in the story because to me they're important, but they don't really apply.
Okay.
So
they're context.
Right. And I do with the prologues. I do like coming up with a first line that I think is catchy and interesting.
Fist bump. Fist bump. Oh yeah. Okay. So let me pop into the comments real quick. Let's see. So did I read Documented Nerds usually takes an outline to a point and then pants a slice of life with each character to get into their head? Oh yeah, that's when I said I do that with vignettes. Okay. Raven said notes that making some very basic character sketches probably does come in handy for secondary and tertiary characters, so they aren't just cardboard cutouts in the background. Raven says, those aren't characters I would expect to really get deeply into the mind of, but to get the impression of a rounded out living world, you have to have background characters that also feel a bit dynamic in their own right. Yeah. His biggest fear, though, is making a background character that ends up way more interesting than my protagonists, unless I've already planned to use them in another story later. I mean, you got to give your readers something to write fanfic about.
And there are some characters that are much more interesting as background characters than they are if you make them the main character of a story.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that whole mystery thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you reveal what's behind the curtain, it's, less compelling.
Yeah. It's interesting in glimpses, but if you actually stare at it and figure out what's going on, it's like, oh, well, that explains it. We're done now.
It reminds me of my favorite interview moment with David Lynch. Someone said, "You said that Eraserhead is your most religious experience. Can you elaborate on that?" And he said, "No."
Perfect.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Let's see. Raven said that he feels like his best short stories came from prompts given to him from other people, but his novels come from his own head. So he broke out the hard cider tonight. So if he gets loopy or his typing really suffers, he's blaming it on the drink. And I think he shouted out Han Solo as a character that's more interesting as a secondary than a primary character.
Yep. And those kind of archetypal characters are often the ones that are more interesting. Honestly, the one that popped into my head as an example was Radar from MASH, because there were always interesting little side behaviors that Radar had that they just never bothered to explain, or only surface explained them. But then when they did After MASH, that was supposed to be, here's Radar dealing with life back in Iowa. It like tanked horribly because he was a reaction character. He was not an action character.
Yeah.
And that's the failing of a lot of spinoffs. It's like, you thought this side character was a main character, and it is not. That's usually what goes wrong.
Yeah. And some people, oh, they're so quirky. Oh, wait, no, that's because they're dealing with a lot of trauma and they're not handling things well. And they're good in small doses, but not all day.
Following quirky through its life gets very frustrating and upsetting and annoying if you're not doing it exactly correctly.
Yeah. Or, wild things. I recently watched Ted Lasso, and they had a couple episodes that followed the assistant director of. So Ted Lasso, the premise is an American football coach goes across the pond to coach British football, soccer. And
you're talking about Coach Beard?
Yeah, Coach Beard.
Okay.
Like on occasion, following him from time to time is fun. We've had a couple episodes where he was the lead character, but I think every episode as a Beard character would not be fun. Getting the insight once or twice, okay, but I don't need to know more because he doesn't do much with it,
Yeah, Coach Beard really is a collection of trauma responses and unhealthy coping behaviors.
Yeah. So, but it's good to get insight into those characters, but they're not necessarily enough to drive a story. There's no growth arc really happening there, or growth. downward spiral because characters don't have to grow better. Sometimes they grow worse.
And honestly, let's look at Ted Lasso as a main character. He's interesting because he refuses to be traumatized.
Yeah. So, popping into comments, Raven says this speaks to a certain brilliance in Charles DeLin's Newford series that nearly every one of his protagonists ends up as a side character or cameo in other stories or novels.
I do the same thing.
I accidentally started with like book 18 of his, and I think that's the only one I've read. I read The Onion Girl, I think, which was a weird spot to start the series.
I consider it fan fiction for my own content.
Okay. So he says it never feels forced or unnatural, or at least it never did to him. The location felt alive enough that these people all interacting just made sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think if you are a good writer, you can definitely do that. And I'm hoping to not mess it up too badly playing in the same world. But my characters don't really know each other. Oh, I'm not the only one. Yes. Raven says this all through the first DeLint book he read, The Onion Girl. So it let's just say the book comes with a trigger warning and leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a really good story, and I enjoyed it.
It's a case of building a world for an ensemble cast, but only following one character closely at a time.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
But it's populated by the characters in the other stories at various points in their interaction.
Their path. Yeah.
Because you follow them when they're doing something interesting. And luckily for most of us, we're not all doing something super interesting at the same time. We're not all dealing with crises. Unfortunately, sometimes we do. And that means our support network gets real thin. But usually people are in different places at different times. Other than, school, college, whatever sort of dynamic. But, not everybody goes to college. Not everybody goes to college at the same time. And so yeah.
See, David Mitchell, the author who wrote Cloud Atlas, he has little Easter eggs in his novels too, that kind of, but they're like just little, like if you don't really read his stuff, like you may not even pick up on them, but they're fun when you have read a few of his books. You're like, oh.
I love it. Could you message me the author so I can put that in the chat?
Yeah, his books are really they're kind of like he writes them a little. Like they're really good, but they're also kind of different, but in a good way. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no. I mean, I like authors that do something different. I don't know that I'm one of them, but I do like what I write. So
yeah, there's also a comedian I think with the same name as him, but if you put like David Mitchell author or David Mitchell Cloud Atlas, you'll get him.
Okay, I'll just pop that into the. So yes, I had the correct number of L's. That's always the question with Mitchell. Usually it's 2 L's, but occasionally, like Allison is usually 2 right after the A, but not always. Just enough to trip you up or trip me up. Maybe you don't get tripped. So, you know what time it is? I think it's time for a stretch break. Let's grab something to drink and do a quick stretch. Oh my gosh. I had a bunch of people over and I spent like the week cleaning and prepping and I am a little stiff, a little tired. But hey, my fridge is full of like soup and food and stuff. So I should be stocked for Nano, right?
Nice.
You're at least good for the first week, right?
Right. I'll be back in just a second. I'm grabbing water.
Hydrate or dihydrate.
All right.
This is kind of the anti-sprint. Usually we do this stuff at the beginning of the sprint.
Yeah.
I'm going to take this moment to grab a snack in the name of all snack-driven authors. So,
Ooh, cookies.
This snack break was brought to you by Chunky Chips Ahoy. Not sponsored, but fueling me.
Nice. I have little pretzel balls, but they're like butter flavored, so they're really good.
Oh,
Like
okay.
the Snyder's.
Yeah. Okay. I think I usually end up with like the mustard ones or the peanut butter filled ones.
Mm.
I like those too. I like pretty much everything they make.
I am so dehydrated. I'm just gonna drink all of this. Oh.
Raven's making accusations in the YouTube chat that you may need an attorney for, Morgan.
No, see, there's this thing when you befriend people who have day jobs in which they bring stuff. Oh, no, actually, what happened was I made a lot of stew and then it was 80 degrees. So people didn't eat the stew.
Yeah.
Yeah, 80 degrees doesn't really encourage stew.
But it was like Halloween weekend. I was expecting, and it was
but I can see why they didn't.
Right. Initially, like when I went shopping for groceries, it was supposed to be a high of like 75 maybe, and getting down into the mid 60s at night, which for my Celsius people is 23, 24 degrees is a high, and 18 degrees is a low. But instead we got to 29, almost 30 degrees, which is not normal this time of year in Virginia. So it was unexpected. So I thought it was going to be cool, chill weather, but it worked out. We had like 15 kids. They were running the backyard and the front yard, and we did pumpkin carving in the garage and stuff like that. So,
Very
but
cool.
no, it's because nobody wanted stew on such a hot day.
Yeah, I should come over and help you eat things.
I'm sure instead of doing beef stew, to do turkey stew, because I know that you were coming and a couple other non-beef eating people.
I super appreciate it.
So, or I'm stocked for, soups for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I don't have to do any cooking for Nano. Although I have a housemate who cooks. So
Yeah, that helps.
Probably slack off too.
Mm.
Yeah. I wanted to try some of this stew, but the meatballs were calling my name instead.
They were the weirdest meatballs I've ever done. I usually do meatballs at like parties and stuff, but I was clearing out my freezer. So I had a bag of gluten-free meatballs, a bag of turkey and cheese meatballs, and a bag of chicken/pork/beef meatballs. So there were 3 different types of meatballs of different sizes in there. So I put it up.
Consistencies.
And different consistencies. Yeah, it was a very weird mix. So I set the party to start at 2 because my sister said my little niece's nap time ends at 2:00. And so if I wanted the maximum amount of niece time, it's gonna be 2 until bedtime at 7. And then her big sibling had a classmate's birthday party. But like super excited that her big sibling has friends who have parties and invite them. So very excited. So they showed up closer to 5. And then I was like, okay, now we have all the kids. Let's carve pumpkins. And for the little ones, I had paint markers. So they're not playing with knives.
Yes.
So. Okay, I think we're all stretched out. So Raven wanted to say the David Mitchell vignettes, that's the same way DeLint is. When he read The Onion Girl, he didn't pick up on a lot of the Easter eggs in there until he read other books set in Newford, which is the city in, I think, Canada. So, yeah. Raven was accusing me of cannibalizing visitors rather than having leftover stew.
No, it's just the fact that Morgan has a bunch of friends who cook for the multitude, bring the food. So by hosting, they dump all the food off on her so they don't have to take it home.
Yeah, and I have friends who love to grill, and so.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, Raven said he just found out the one ring they used for certain forced perspective shots in The Lord of the Rings was the size of a crown, or at least in comparison to an actual ring. So that's pretty funny.
How else could you read that engraving? Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Much easier to get the lighting right. It's so tricky to like shiny metal like that.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, okay, so we talked about who. Let's talk about what. So I had another thing for people who didn't know what they wanted to talk about. So let's see here. What do we got? For me in particular, let's see. I don't even know what happened. Oh my gosh. It decided it wanted to be half the size of the screen. And then it decided since I didn't want that, it wanted to be a quarter size of the screen.
Mm.
And it won't let me grab the edge from the bottom. I have to do it from the top, and it's being very finicky. So we'll just leave it alone right there. So anyway, for me, let's see, my plot genre, since I'm Morgan, would be a romance. And let's see, H is returning home. Oh, it's one of those you go back to your hometown and you fall in love with the guy from home. Or the chick from home, whichever. So
Whichever.
whoever is like, ooh. So let's see, Sako, which one would yours be?
Let's see. Memoir. A newcomer arrives.
Okay.
So we talked about what we're actually writing, or what we get using the first and last letter of our name.
First letter of first name and first letter of last name.
Last name, yeah, because mine ends up being a thriller lose something, and it's like, no, that's not what I'm writing.
Somebody loses their life.
Or I do a space opera and I fall in love.
Aw.
Love space opera.
Let's see. Sarah would have another space opera falling in love. So maybe not.
Yep.
That doesn't feel like your genre.
Not really.
But it can be a space opera in which they fall in love while being tracked and stalked and stuff.
Space is not my strong suit.
Yeah.
I love Star Trek and stuff. Like I am a nerd for that stuff. But
Sure.
my brain does not work for writing that nonsense.
I hear you.
I'm glad other people's do because I love it. But
Sure. Des, which would yours be?
Mine would be a thriller where a newcomer arrives, which would sort of fit in the world already.
So,
although I was just looking as the story I'm actually going to write, lose something is appropriate because she loses herself and she has to find her way home. But
Aww. Nice.
That's a very hero's journeys vibe. So, I'm trying to make sure that the themes of my three characters' journeys
aren't the same.
Well, they're not the same, but they're also not so opposed that it's like reading three separate books. Just because they appear in each other's stories and vice versa, it doesn't mean that they need to, maybe not mirror each other, but they do need to have
a commonality.
Yeah, commonality. Like one can't be. I don't know. I feel like the stakes need to not be too completely separate, even if they're going for different things. So, hello, we've got Cult Classic Cage Brought tons of cereal bars for the snack stream.
How's it going, Cass? How you doing, Cass?
While Cass is responding, let me catch up with Raven, who says, "Who's on first? What's on second? I don't know's on third." See, this is why I never offered to be on camera for the stream, because I'd be cutting in with this nonsense instead of waiting patiently in chat. Oh my gosh, when I am in somebody's chat, I am like talking like it's my job. Thank y'all for being patient with me when I have like thrown comments in your chat. So nice.
Starfield, right on.
Yeah. Sundays are supposed to be lazy, so I mean,
Cass plays video games.
Oh, nice.
Like it's her job.
I mean, it's nice if it's your job.
For some people, it is. They get
For
sponsorship.
some people, it's like their job.
Oh,
It's
sorry.
all about that Twitch stream and the advertising revenue.
Mm-hmm,
I just yawned like it was my job. Does that count? Whew. Okay, so how many different genres and like settings and stuff have you played with? Do you usually do like contemporary or space fantasy or world building? I mean, I've played around in different worlds a lot. I've done contemporary, I've done sci-fi, I've done fantasy, I've done kind of like not steampunk, but like Studio Ghibli level technology with like trains and stuff in my fantasy world. And they're like, what? There are trains in your fantasy world. You have to establish the sooner. And I'm like, how much world building do you want in 2 pages? This is page 3, people. Chill out. Just because it says fantasy doesn't mean you're making the wrong assumptions. Anyway.
Like, this is earlier. This is page 3.
Right. So I try to like sprinkle things in a little earlier, but yeah. So let's switch up order. Des, what sort of settings have you played with?
Everything that I've written, like story-wise, is in the same world. But I've written short stories for that world. That I have one like bug thriller. I have a couple that are more romance leaning. Then I have some that are, I guess, maybe sort of contemporary. With the short stories. With the longer form novels I'm writing, they're sort of genre bending because I read a lot of like crime mystery thrillers, and so there's that running through, and then people dealing with trauma in a sort of slice of life way, I guess. And then the setting is solar punk / sci-fi because they're on a distant planet far in the future, but their tech is limited because they're super eco-friendly and they're trying to not destroy their planet. So it's not your classic sci-fi in that sense, but so it's a little bit of everything everywhere.
So they found a world that was hospitable for humans without terraforming?
Right. It's like thousands of years before they landed, because I did like the generational ship thing. Basically, Earth was dying and they just sent out a bunch of arc-like ships like in a bunch of different directions, and like, good luck. Like maybe some of them had destinations, but this one they didn't have a destination. They were just sent off in a direction. They just got lucky enough when their ship was kind of getting old and failing. They got lucky enough to find a planet that they could survive on. So.
Nice. Sako, what about your settings and time period?
So I started with a cyberpunk thriller sort of deal back in '96, and then I started adding horror elements, and I started writing urban fantasy and horror, and I've played with, because I write Vampire the Masquerade stuff, I love putting my vampires from specific eras in time. So I will do a ton of homework on like where and when, and then throw my character in there and have them do stuff.
Raven says, I'm sure Sako remembers me being active in the chat of the Vampire the Masquerade game.
I was running.
Okay. Let me real quick say hello. Ashling swung by. Hello and welcome. And Key Clavis is here. Hello.
Hi, Key.
So Cass says, playing video games is better than having to watch the torture device that was the Jets/Giants game today.
Oh.
I will take your word for it.
Yeah.
For Raven, for genre, he mostly does fantasy, urban/cosmic horror. And back when he was younger, he did sci-fi, and he's done some folklore-inspired short stories.
I am experimenting with different like subgenres of horror with this choose your own adventure thing that I'm casually working on. So I did
you're
some
about to do a romance though, right?
For Nano, yeah.
What inspired you to like leave your horror home?
I'm not leaving my horror home because it's still gonna have horror overtones.
Yes. Okay.
So it's vaguely thriller-like, so it's
So
not.
Does this make it a gothic romance?
No.
Okay.
But supernatural horror.
Is it a goth romance though? Does it include goths?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
Not really. Yeah.
Right. Sarah, what settings do you play? Do you do mostly contemporary or what?
Predominantly contemporary, but since I'm like such a hardcore discovery writer, sometimes that's not like it's not planned.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So. Okay, cool. Doc?
Okay, so obviously I've done a whole bunch of steampunk, but I've also done some time travel sci-fi. I've done some I guess you'd call contemporary paranormal short stories. And of course I'm gonna do this story, which is a contemporary YA fantasy. But I've also got some other things that are.
I didn't realize it was going to be contemporary.
Yep, it's going to be.
I guess I made the same assumption people did when I did my YA fantasy of assuming a setting.
But I've also got some other ideas that I've got in my stable for the future, and that includes a superhero sci-fi one shot, which I've just been thinking of as metas in space.
Cool.
But I've got an industrial fantasy limited series, or I guess it's industrial magic, so industrial fantasy kind of works. But that I've got in the back of my head. I also have a more hard sci-fi that another author wants to do as a tie-in with a fantasy work that they've got. So we've got intertwined worlds between sci-fi and fantasy, and eventually we'll come back around to that. But I don't know. I've just got all kinds of things I want to dabble in.
And a stupid day job sitting in the way.
Yes, it is such a pain. It eats up so much time for no useful production.
Right? In regards to writing, hopefully there's some productivity on the work side of things.
Well, what you mean? The stuff that they want? That's not important to my writing. No.
Oh yeah, no. Obviously not important to your writing. So, since we were just talking about genre and setting, I thought I'd bring up my where chart. So, I was really hurting for differentiating these. So we have last letter of first name. So Morgan. So with an N. N-O. So we have village. Give me a first digit of a phone number because I'm not going to give anybody my phone number online. Pick a number 1 through 0.
8.
8. Okay. So we have, a little village in Brazil and another number.
3.
3 in the far future. So I don't know how I came up with this list of locations. It's very random. And time periods and locations. So I think a lot of us, for different countries and time periods, we have assumptions for, the size of the town and the technology level and stuff like this. And by thinking it through, you can realize, oh, the default doesn't have to be what I write. And I think I've run into the memes several times of which the end of the samurais and the end of the Aztecs overlapped in such a way that you could have a samurai, pirate, and Aztec warrior all in the same place at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt that, but
In the Wild West.
They lived at the same time period.
they did. Now on separate parts of the earth. But...
Yes. But there was, movement between those places. It was very unlikely, but not impossible.
Not impossible.
So yeah.
Let's see.
So then you just need some kind of globe spanning conspiracy to bring these characters together, right? No.
Right. I saw that, and I have to admit, Doc, your writing definitely. I was like, with airships, it would all be possible.
Yep.
A farm in Kenya during the colonial period.
Which colonial period? Up to you.
I don't know.
So.
See, I was looking at a city in the French countryside during the Enlightenment, and it's like, wait, that sounds a lot like the stuff I'm writing already.
There you go. You're welcome. Raven says the Huns were apparently fighting the Holy Roman Empire and Japanese samurai at the same time because history is weird.
Yep.
So. Oh my gosh, the yawn.
Yeah, my husband had to write a book that was a Victorian era book.
Okay.
And so he wrote about cowboys.
Yep.
But that's not that's not usually what you would jump to, but he doesn't have any knowledge in that area, and he was like, I'm gonna write about cowboys then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people talk about the Victorian era and they forget what a huge swath of time the reign of Queen Victoria was.
Oh, you're right. Yes.
And I have a lot of trouble writing to other people's prompts for like even anthologies and stuff like that. And one of the things I've been told is when you have a writing call, one of the best things to do is don't go with your first 2 thoughts, go with the third one, because if you can think of it, so can everybody else. So dig a little deeper. So popping into the comments, Jen writes romance swung by. Hello, so many faces. We're doing a NaNoWriMo kickoff party and only eating a few snacks because we're mostly talking.
I mostly ate my snacks while we were talking, so I am now snackless.
I went on mute to put cookies in my face. Raven says, or at least our grasp on sequence of events in history is disjointed in our brains based on how we learned history. Yeah.
Yep.
It depends on how you learned history. Yeah, that's true.
We are taught history in periods of isolation when it was really all happening at the same time.
Yeah. And while some parts were isolated, there was usually some level of trade and, especially if you're talking connected continents.
Mm-hmm.
So, because, America was discovered by the Europeans because they were looking for a shortcut to,
India.
Asia
India. Yeah.
and India. So there was already like the Silk Road and everything like that. There was already commerce and an exchange of ideas and words and language and that sort of thing. And so,
Yes, but you also get some fun fish out of water stories, like I think it was the 14th Warrior that was about is the 13th Warrior?
13th
Okay,
Warrior.
sorry. That
my
was
college
about.
boyfriend watched it monthly for like 2 years.
Well, it was a good story, but it was basically about someone from the Middle East who ended up in Norse territory and falling in with the Vikings. So,
and well, obviously the fighting and the Grendel and everything else part is not true. The bathing habits and all that sort of stuff is from an actual, I think, Roman adjacent. He wrote in Latin of his travels and compared them to, his culture, which was not Roman, and their cleanliness habits and that sort of thing. And so like that is stuff literally from a translation of a travel log from that era. So Raven says that the film was ridiculously anachronistic, but it's still very fun.
Yeah.
So it wasn't bad. I even if I had to watch it way too many times.
It cracked me up that the Vikings named him Aben, and he's like, that means son of. No, Aben. Yeah.
I mean, he is a son of a.
But I'm cheating.
Yeah. So, yeah, there it is. It's combined with Ahmad ibn Fandlan's historical account of the Volga Vikings. So, and he was born in Baghdad in 877. And he was famous for his travel logs.
Because apparently once you burn your bridges at court, you get to travel a whole hell of a lot.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So he wasn't dealing with the Romans, but I think the Rome translated it at one point. So. Okay. Anyway.
But I still love the bit where they offer him a drink and he says, I've taken a vow not to eat to imbibe the fermentations of the grape or the grain, and they laugh at him because it's mead.
He just meant he wasn't going to get drunk though.
Yeah.
And he was unfamiliar with. Although I have had friends go to places where their alcohol beverage of choice is fermented milk, so Yeah. Yeah. Raven likes the point that the Norsemen start referring to him as little brother, even though the ones that were shorter than him.
Yeah.
He knows in the film the initial language they bridged the gap with is Greek rather than Latin. No, yeah, that makes way more sense. So I do like the way I thought the filmmaking was really good, and that they had the he was traveling with people and he didn't know the language, and at first it was all in another language, and then every so often there would be a word he could understand mixed in until all of a sudden he could they were saying everything in English except maybe one or two words.
I thought it was Norwegian because I almost married a Norwegian, and he translated it all for me.
That's one way of doing it.
Yeah. It says at some point the characters utter stuff in Old Norse and Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
So Old Norse might have an overlap with Norwegian?
Yeah, probably.
So, weird. Somebody says they're now hearing Russian as English and the same characters that speak Russian again when they're English speaking. Yeah, no, somebody says Norwegian, which is a descendant of Old Norse tongues and convenient for the filmmakers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was one of the best transition of learning a language scenes I've seen.
Yeah.
Right up until you do the international release and you realize you have to redub all those bits.
Well, you're gonna have to redub it anyway. Well, for most places, using Old Norwegian is fine.
Norway, not so much.
Right. So there's like one area that it doesn't work. That's it. I think we're okay. So let's talk about our NaNoWriMo experiences.
Oh, geez.
How many nanos have you done? How many have you won? How many have you peace outed? I might have to look at my NaNoWriMo website.
I gotta look at the site. Yeah.
Since I
And
pulled
when
my
they
site up
redid the
earlier,
site, I had to put everything back in
manually, and it was really
looking
annoying.
at my projects, and it's real easy to see that I have only one nano twice.
I won the first time. I won the Hope's Chest Part 5. And a hat. Wow. My goal was 10,000. I made 57,925.
Nice.
Wyvern's story was 82,000 words.
Why is it giving us that much extra space? I don't need that much space. Sorry.
And half of draft 2 was 75K. Oh, that hurts. Sanguine Sigil, book 1 of The Damned Hitman. I won that year and I lost it in the hard drive crash.
Hard drive crash of 2018?
19, 18?
Something
like that.
It was a sad day.
It was a sad day.
Month.
Year. I talked about it today and it's still sore.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of work and effort and time and everything
and I'm now at the point in the story where I'm rewriting old content that I had lost. So and I'm thinking of it in like 600 word chunks because I'm trying to serialize it.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a little hung up on how to tell this story.
Okay. So, Sarah?
Well, it doesn't have my stats all the way back. It says I've been a member since 2007. I know I did it without the website at least 1 year.
Sure.
But I found out about NaNoWriMo at a writing convention in 2003.
Okay.
I think 3 or 4. It was still like it was still somebody who was advertising it as write 50,000 words in 30 days.
Sure.
And it was still 1,666 words a day. They changed it to 1,667, I think, because people complained about a 666 being in it at some point in there. Or it was technically a little low, or I don't know, but they moved it up to 1,667 at some point because it used to be 1,666 when like I first got just like printouts and there wasn't a website. But I've been on the website since 2007. It only keeps track of my actual things since 2010, and I only have 4 completions, and I know that's not entirely true.
Yeah.
So
they rounded up because it's 1666.66666 repeating.
Yeah.
So rounding up to a full word makes sense. And 10 words over, and how do you divide that across 30 days?
Well, and you know, it is a little easier to do that when you're being informal and you're not making a whole ass website
Yeah.
to like say that this is what we're doing. So that very well may have been part of it too, is that like we were at a very informal thing.
Sure.
I found out about it in 2009 for Nano proper. And my grandfather was dying of cancer at the time.
Ugh.
And I don't know how I won. Like I had so much going on, and yet I still won. And I pantsed the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes writing can be like a nice form of escapism.
It very much was. Very much was.
Yeah. The story that ended up being my 2013 win, what I had tried twice before. I came up with the idea in 2008 in a dream, like 2 weeks before my ex-husband proposed to me.
Oh.
And I wrote an LJ post about it so I could remember the dream, so I could remember it, right?
Oh, cool.
And I tried it one camp and I tried it some other time. And that's when I learned that momentum or, excitement gets me somewhere between 10 and 20,000 in, but it doesn't get me all the way to the end.
Yeah.
And then in 2013, when my marriage was on the rocks, I leaned in and it got through it. And that's when I learned what it takes for me to get through a NaNoWriMo. I skipped 1 year because I was starting my first new job in over 8 years, moving, hosting Thanksgiving for 30 people, attending my dad's 50th anniversary and fandom party up at PhilCon, all within the same 2 weeks. I was moving 2 days after that Thanksgiving I was hosting, and that was the weekend after Dad's thing. And I'm like, I'm not doing Nano this month.
I'm not doing Nano.
Let's set myself up for success. But let's see. So my first story, is my Second World Fantasy, my YA fantasy, and I wrote the sequel to that. I did a gender bent Robin Hood. I did my school play contemporary fantasy middle grade story. 1 year I did a Nano of short stories because I didn't have a big story idea, in which a bunch of people gave me prompts and I rolled with the ones that worked to see what was a full story idea. And one of those turned into the one short story that I got paid for that's up online. Let's see. I did, obviously, My Dream of Stellar Ships, my space fantasy, and that took 2 tries. The first time it veered off course. Even though I won, the story wasn't done, so I tried it again. And then last year was the hot mess of an urban fantasy that needs reworking. And then I've got this year's. So this is going to be, I think, my 10th NaNoWriMo that I've actually gone all in on. So kind of excited.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Because 2013 was my first and I skipped a year.
I had to go and dig into each of my projects because a couple years ago I found out that, if you're going back to the same book, you can just add a new goal to an existing project instead of building a new project.
They change things, so sometimes you can do that. They had sprints in there for 1 year, and then they revamped the whole site, and they're gone. And I'm so sad.
But so I just had to go through and found out I've done NaNoWriMo 8 times, and I actually set up one other time to do it like in the spring and do a Camp NaNoWriMo, but that never actually happened.
I've won Camp Nano once because I set my own goal, and once I start making excuses, I'm done. But Nano, I've won like 9 times, so
I've only won twice, and that was the first time I did it, which was when I was working on the Perils of Prague, and this last time, which was actually in 2021, when I was finishing up the Rage of Ragnarok.
Okay.
So
I would like to think that Sako and I had a little to do with that win.
Oh, you definitely did help. But last year I took off because I was deep into edits.
Yeah.
But this year I want to put my edits on hold for the month because I want to write something new.
Yeah. Occasionally I think about writing something short just because you can finish those. Let me pop into the comments. Let's see. Raven has attempted 13 times and successfully completed once. Rita says this is their second Nano, but also participated in the last 2 camps and has won all 3. Snaps. And Raven says he's written 337,347 words in total during the course of all the Nanos he's participated in since 2005. So nice. Wait, let me see what Nano says. Oh, Nano says I've done 7,722. That I have 0 issues. 772,957.
26 times. 26 entries into 26 projects made.
Yeah. I have so many failed camps that like although many of my camps are also stuff like edit the story or revision 2 of the story.
Right. You know? I have a lot of that.
Yeah. So
see, that doesn't help me so much for the tools are really great when you're writing words, but not so great when you're editing.
Well, and there were also a couple of years where the NaNoWriMo website was just absolute garbage trash. Yeah. And I know I didn't put my numbers in a couple of times. Like at some point during those years, I was just like, screw that website. I'm done messing with it.
Right. Sako, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, because there was that period of time where they redid the whole website every Nano.
And you had to plug everything back in.
Right. Yeah. And then so like periodically it just would be so hard to work with because it was a whole new system that it was too much for me to bother with.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
I don't blame you. So Sako, did you want to read out your numbers?
608,858 words total.
Yay. Nice. That's pretty awesome. Oh, I'm going to shamelessly plug myself if you want to be Nano friends.
Yeah, mine's just 250,000.
Shocking absolutely no one who's ever followed me anywhere. My name there is Morgan Hazelwood. Now that X doesn't exist anymore, I'm Morgan Hazelwood everywhere.
Yay!
Sako is Psycho Sako on the Nano site.
I'm Desdemona Rose, and they actually let you put a space on your name, which messes me up all the time. Because I'm like,
I did not. I was like the old school. So what? I don't have any favorite books, but I do have favorite authors listed, which makes sense because authors are easier than books.
Yeah. Mine are weird because most of my favorites are like series, so it's like.
Yeah. Which is why authors are better.
Mm-hmm.
So, did anybody design a cover for this year's?
Always.
Oh, show it. Send me the link or something. Or can you hear a thing?
I think I can send you my project.
Sure.
I think so. I did, but mine's kind of. It's not what I wanted because I was trying to make it in Canva. And then I had it zoomed in and I didn't realize it until I printed the picture. So part of my title was in a weird spot because I thought it was at the top, but really it was halfway down because I was zoomed
Same
in.
here. So I adjusted and redid it. So, I got it. I totally got it.
I was like, I spent so long on it. I was like, I'm done. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's just for the Nano site.
So. Oh, I just looked at my local NaNoWriMo group on Discord, and someone said, wait, I thought you were there. This woman said, my name is Morgan Hazelwood, and I am branded by using all the same on all the social media. And apparently I got a good laugh. Did this happen? Desdemona, you said you were there.
Yeah, there was. You were. You were sponsored.
Oh, that's absolutely
I know.
hilarious. So okay, let me
Here's
look
my
up.
weirdish cover. It's like layers and layers of pictures.
Too bad I can't spell if I can type, you know. So
See, I never have covers before I start my projects because I know I'm going to hire somebody who actually has artistic talent to do it later.
sure.
Yeah, that's why mine is just a bunch of random stuff from Canva.
Yep.
This one, if I ever wanted to look, even though by the time I get to the end of this novel, feeling it's going to have a slightly different
Vibe.
yeah, what I originally. So the cover would probably change anyways, but I would have to like paint it or make it myself instead of trying
So
to.
the link
do it the easy
for Doc is broken.
Oh no.
What?
Oh no, it's because it has the word opens attached to it. That's on me.
Okay.
Oh,
I will add you. Bloop.
Oh, opens a new tab. Yeah. So just clearly copy pasting is not the way to get these links. Okay. So nice. There's your word count. And there's your project, Secret Ecology. Oh, that's cool. Okay, so you're writing under Talitha Harbor?
Talitha Harbor. Yeah, that's like
Okay,
the series.
Talitha. Sorry.
Or I don't. It's just a random word I found online, and I pronounce it the way I pronounce it.
That's fine. And here's mine, A Song in the Aether Stream.
I added you on mine.
Oh, did I shared the... Sorry about that. I shared the tab and not the window again. I showed off all three of them. Y'all should have really enjoyed them. So anyway, this one's mine, which is kind of simple, but you know, I don't hate it. So, and there is
How do I add people?
If you
buddies,
the easy way to add people is to go to NaNoWriMo, and in this, well, let me shrink this a little. Okay, search for users in the upper side, and then you do like Sako, and it'll come back with you.
will it?
Yes. And then I click on you.
Oh, okay.
And
So
then,
you gotta have someone in mind.
Not necessarily, but like maybe go to like your group or something like that and find the names there. But there is a bug where once you send the request, it says that you're not friends and you can't send one, but really you just have to wait 5 minutes and it'll sort itself out.
Yeah. So
if you try to click it again, it's like you can't, but it doesn't say that it's pending. So it's a little weird. So are y'all purists about only putting in what happens before midnight?
Yes.
No, because I lose track of time.
I count anything before bedtime as whatever day I woke up on.
If I'm doing a 24-hour thing, I gotta do it by hour.
Yeah. Like
I don't start early or anything, but within NaNoWriMo, if it's day 10,
yeah,
but it's technically day 11, but I have not slept yet, it is still day 10.
Yeah.
But I follow it like for the start and end time of the whole event.
Exactly.
Those are firm on.
The only deadlines that are important are the start at the 1st of November and the end at the 30th of November. Yeah. Everything else is timey-wimey, and I will put the words where I want them to go.
I will count it for, I don't go to bed until I get my words in, because I have done 2 days worth of a nano in a single day once in my life ever. And therefore, if I fall behind, I will not keep up. So because I don't go to bed till I get my words in, whether it's, 9 p.m. or 3 a.m., it counts for the day that I was putting my words in. And so I guess I should show you how I managed to get them in under the correct day. So, they don't have I can't start tracking.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say because you can't enter anything, you probably can't. But there is a way to switch it so that you can change the day the words were written.
Instead of just updating your word count, what you do is you go and you add an entry, and it'll let you put in whatever day it was. So if you miss a day or you do the words but you forget to update the website, you can also add those in as well and have it accurately track.
Which is really good for those late nights when you are totally unaware that the NaNoWriMo website exists anymore. Because you're so
also good for those days when your computer works but your internet connection is down.
Right. Also true.
Yeah. And I will die by the whole, I use Google Docs. And if you struggle with Google Docs with larger documents, just click the work offline. It will sync much less often, and therefore it will be a lot more functional, but it will still sync fine when you're online.
And if you have like a 75K sort of book, no issues.
Yeah. Yeah. So do save offline on occasion. Download your document, especially once you hit like that 50K mark. I like to email it from one email account to a different email account on a different service, so that it's in the sent folder and the received folder with the attachment, as well as download it, as well as put on a Dropbox. So yeah. So hey, I picked this up and I haven't used it yet.
What is it? Oh, it's a
Can't quite see
backup
it.
drive.
Oh, it's a drive.
I would show you mine, but it's plugged in.
Right? So it's a backup drive. And like the reason I've been stalling is I thought I would have to carefully pick out exactly what I wanted to save. But I was told it'll just back everything in, my docs and my pictures.
You
If you
can.
tell it to, it'll back up your entire drive.
Like, I would like the pictures and I would like all my documents. So, and I like to download between drafts. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
See,
So I have stable snapshots.
I've got a dedicated backup drive, but I also use
Dropbox a lot, right?
I use Scrivener and Dropbox. So and I've got a backup system which is in the cloud. Actually, I don't have that on this system. One of the things I need to do is disable my old computer and re-enable the backups on this computer before November 1st. So
yeah. Step 1, make sure everything is backed up. Step 2, make sure it's backed up on more than one spot. And step 3, pray that they don't both die at the same time. I'm so sorry, Sako.
I've got backups on a local drive and at least 2 different cloud services, so my writing should be pretty secure.
Yeah, I have my writing saved in like 4 different places because I write and edit and share in all the different places. So
yeah,
I'm a Google Docs whore. I really am.
I'm a recovering Google fangirl. They've just dropped too many things that I've adopted, but yeah.
I'm waiting for them to drop Docs.
I have World Anvil, so I write in World Anvil and share on Google Docs and edit in Pro Writing Aid. So, and I let Pro Writing Aid save it too, because I have a paid version of. I spend a lot of money on something that makes me no money.
I think many of us have been there. So.
Actually, that's a very good point that we should bring up right now. As far as the technology approach to NaNoWriMo, because it's a case of if you're going to make any changes, make them before November 1st. Because you want to make sure on October 31st at 11 o'clock, everything you need for NaNoWriMo is working on your machine, and you will not change it for the month.
Yeah.
I noticed that Scrivener just came out with an update, and I went ahead and applied the update.
Raven headed off to bed. Good night. Sleep well. Sorry.
But yeah, you don't want to. It's like, oh, hey, there's an operating system. It's November 5th. It's like, yeah, don't apply it. Live with the fact that you're not on the latest system for the rest of the month, because the last thing you need to do is apply some update and find out it breaks something that's vital to your writing process.
So if you're doing maybe get all your Google or Windows updates done now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I have to make the decision if I want to update my operating system to the latest version.
Yeah.
Or if I'm just going to write it through November and then try.
Step 1, don't do it during the middle of the stream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually doesn't work when you try to update your operating system in the middle of the stream, because they tend to like reboots.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
Achoo.
Oh. Can I get rid of the snot right there? No? Oh, well.
No?
Oh, okay. So we've talked about our past nanos. We've talked about this upcoming nano. Are there any weird things you do to prep that we haven't talked about? What are your favorite preparing to write techniques?
Outlining.
Are you snowflake or beat sheets or what?
I have a beat sheet that I've been putting together for years and years. The combination of all the formulas I've come across so far.
Right.
I'm probably going to do a 2023 update here pretty shortly.
Nice.
It's a 30-day beat sheet, so it kind of carries me through the books that I've written.
Cool. I like to use Jamie Gold. Has a bunch of beat sheets for 3-act and 4-act structures. And like she's got spreadsheets you give her your target word count and it'll tell you what page, approximately the inciting incident should be on, and, the dark moment of despair, et cetera, et cetera. There's supposed to be a dark moment of despair, apparently. Or an all hope is lost moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really bad at those. I need to get better at those.
Trauma incident.
Trauma incident. Where you think the goal is not going to happen. You trip right before the closing gate. A war breaks out,
Yeah. I have like a slightly chaotic outlining method.
Okay.
Because I use Sarah Cannon's version of the 3 acts, but instead of making an outline for the story, I make an outline for each of my POVs.
Right.
And then I just mix them together. But
I'm definitely working on the multiple point of view ones, because last time I did multiple point of views, I ended up with characters in their denouement while the others are still in the middle of the tension, and that did not work well.
Yeah, but with this novel, I have it's like an alien. It's not really a virus, but like an alien illness outbreak, and there's a mysterious death that has like an autopsy and stuff involved. So this outline's really intense because there's like the outbreak stuff, the autopsy stuff, and everyone reacting. So it's very complicated. It's taken me forever, but hopefully at least the story will make sense with all the things going on.
Sure. Hey, we've got a raid. Hello, Uncle to Ben and Foxrider. And the kids are asleep. Hello and welcome. We're talking NaNoWriMo and planning for November and writing a novel next month. So,
so I'm a bit of a feral writer, so I don't tend to do any documentation. I just try to think over what are the key scenes that I need for my story.
But you do a fair amount of world building, don't you?
I do a lot of this in my head.
Mhm.
And I don't document it down nearly as much as I really should, especially when I'm coming back to something after leaving it for over 10 years.
Oh my goodness.
I just pulled up the Scrivener document for the last time I was working on this story, and it said, it's like, oh, this is with an old version. We have to convert it or it's not going to work. And it's like, okay, at least
Save the old version as a copy and then convert it in case something goes wrong.
Scrivener is good at that. It says, we'll copy this into a new version. The old one will stay there just the way it was. So
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, hey, our raiders are prepping for Nano too. They just did a prep stream based on Moorcock's 3-day book writing method. So that's another technique you can do. That's pretty awesome. So yeah, I do high level outlines that I ignore unless I get stuck. I think that's what went wrong with my urban fantasy last year. I think I was trying to write the scenes that I had planned without letting it grow organically. And so the scenes didn't feel like they flowed from one to the next and felt a little disjointed.
Mhm.
And I think that's part of the issue.
That is what I do in my revision phase, I make my transitions.
Yeah, but I feel like they didn't flow because it wasn't quite the right thing to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I gotta go back and think a little harder. So.
I got you.
What about you, Sarah? Oh, wait, you're a pantser.
Yep.
For those who are unfamiliar, an exploratory writer writes by the seat of their pants, so NaNoWriMo calls them pantsers.
Yeah, I typically use Discovery Writer, but that's just because pantser sounds like a essay thing. So
Okay.
Running around pulling
if
people
it bothers you, I can try and remember.
It doesn't bother me when other people say it. It just is one of those things that I personally don't say it for that reason because it feels gross.
Okay. I definitely don't want to say anything that makes you cringe. Okay.
No. It's just one of those things. It's like it's like, isn't there a better word?
Yeah. So I call myself a plantser. I do some high level outlining, but I'm not like one of those people with 20,000 words of plotting. So Uncle to Ben says, yes, pantsers represent.
It's a whole thing. It is. I mean, I can't imagine trying to follow a outline. So I would imagine that the idea of just like sitting down and writing something sounds as absurd to someone who can't write without an outline.
I think one of the things, even if I were going to pants, that I do that I would still want to do is to come up with a list of names that fit in my world so I can grab and go, because placeholder names do not work for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like to have a list of like 25 to 40 names that fit in my world for different characters, but I don't know who they are. So when I need a name, I can grab it, because if I'm writing a story and I need a character, finding a new name can take me somewhere between 5 minutes and 3 weeks. So having a list of names that I think fit my setting.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked about my second world fantasy with Alice, Bob, and Carol fighting Canadia. So someday I'll edit that one.
But today is not that day.
Today is not that name. Okay, so The Kids Are Asleep says the thing that they like about Moorcock's approach is that you can just do the list making part and then pants the rest. Oh, Sako has balloons.
Sako had balloons.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. That was weird. Maybe that was from her stream?
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
She'll tell us when she comes back.
That was weird.
Pete Clavis says, greetings at JK, finishing up a novella to ease the transition between two of my books, then beginning the rewrite of the book that follows the novella story. Okay, that's cool. Let's see. The Kids Are Asleep says that Moorcock makes lists of characters, locations, images, and events. So that's cool. Sako, you just had balloons on your screen.
Did I?
You were faced the other way and balloons came flowing up, and we had no idea why.
Or how.
Oh, it's Mac's new OS.
Oh.
So if I...
Does that mean you hit like a milestone or something?
I have not gone to this OS yet, so I haven't done all these features, but that is cool.
Come on. You wanna? No? Okay.
That was so cool. So what makes balloons?
I have no clue.
Okay.
Especially since I wasn't
Paying
I don't
attention.
know, like,
Yeah, you were like turned
pointing at
around.
things,
Yeah.
maybe? No. Okay.
Yeah, no, you were like turned around when they went off.
Which is bonkers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay,
So-
so I guess I'm doing the operating system update before Tuesday.
okay, great. Yeah. Definitely make sure everything is stable and backed up before we get started.
Oh yeah.
So I know I am not using Scrivener because I hate it with a fiery burning passion. But that's just
fine.
a personal thing, and I don't mind if it works for you. That's totally fine, as long as you don't tell me that I need to be using it.
I think I might try Scrivener for this
Yeah.
project.
Okay. From what I've heard, it works really well for people who have copious amount of world building notes and people who write out of order.
Um,
And people
It
who like
does
the
have
idea of compiling their manuscripts. And I have enough compiler issues in my day job.
It does have a lot of features that support people who like to have character notes and people who will write things out of order or who want to rearrange the order of scenes after they've written them.
Yeah. So,
but
like, if you write out of
it's
order
not
and
for
that sort of thing, yeah. I understand that there are use cases that make it better for certain people. I understand the experience is much better on a Mac than a PC. And that when I tried it like 5 years ago, it was before they did the Windows update. And I've done some UX design and it looked like it was from the 90s. And I tried to minimize. I was trying to minimize chapters of the tutorial and accidentally deleted them. And I have done website design and app design, and I accidentally deleted chapters of the tutorial, and I rage quit. So that was my Scrivener experience.
You don't have to use it. You just have to use something that works for you.
Yeah.
I
And
have
I'm cheap. I'm cheap. Google Docs is free.
I've heard from people on the Windows side that the Windows update to Scrivener brought it mostly on par with the Mac, and in some places it's actually a little ahead. Okay. But I will not advocate for any particular tool. Use what you want to use.
Yeah. I will say I haven't tried the updated one, and I understand that the Windows experience used to be much worse than the Mac user. So I understand where I'm coming from and, what sort of things I look for in an editor. And one of the things I look for is free. Another thing I look for is being able to write on my phone and totally not on my work computer and my home computer and have the versions sync without me having to use another third-party app.
I usually enjoy backing up on or just working in Google Docs.
Yeah.
For that reason.
Yeah.
Because I'll work on my phone, I'll work on my tablet, I'll work on my computer, I'll write by hand and dictate.
Now, I have to admit, I cannot use any of the dictation tools because my typing brain is much faster than my speaking brain, and it has a different voice. So
I have a couple shortcuts for making dictation a little easier. Number one, in fantasy worlds, use placeholder names because they won't voice to text any of your fantasy names. And secondly, even if you get excited, stay in an even monotone or maybe mansetto it, because dictation works better if you have a lower pitch voice. If I get excited, it doesn't understand what I'm trying to say. My only problem with that is I start talking in punctuation.
Yeah.
Has anyone else caught themselves talking in punctuation after some dictation?
I still talk that way.
Oh, the worst, I think, for me is voicemail, because I am talking to a machine.
Oh, I
person.
see.
So that's when I really pull out the commas and the colons and the semi, like, yeah, period,
A
exclamation.
lot of times when I ask a question, I will add question mark at the end.
Yeah.
I used to do that when doing voice to text people while I was driving, but the latest operating system is much better at figuring out punctuation. But
Yeah.
I think my least favorite part is how I use Android, and I don't know if it was the change between systems when I went from like a Google phone to a Samsung phone, or if it was the new version, but they went from suggesting words that sound the same to words that could have been typos. Like they got rid of the voice to text, oh, did you mean this? When you go to update it. And the fact that they got rid of a useful feature to make it way less useful is really frustrating to me. Like, I understand not having a thing, but having a capability and then getting rid of it is really frustrating to me.
That is frustrating.
So, popping into the comments, Key says, I use Word 2013 with a custom template and smart edit. If I have to do a lot of find replace, I'll port in it in chunks, do a programmer's text edit with regex. Yeah.
Cool.
I think a lot of writers, if you use square brackets and then you write out what you need to fill in, then you can just search on square brackets as one of those. Do some research on how people make applesauce or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, one thing I will say about Scrivener's compile feature is that if you tend to think of how the text appears on your screen as to how it should appear on the printed page, then you need to get over that if you're going to use Scrivener, because in Scrivener's world, those are two separate things, and the compile is to take your stream of text and put it into page format.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you can handle that concept, you'll be great with Scrivener. If you can't handle it, find something else, because compile will drive you nuts.
Then why don't I just use LaTeX? Like, sorry.
Some people do.
I know. I'm okay. Just, yeah. Google Docs gets me 90% of the way there, and
I will admit that the thing that seems to bug most people about Scrivener is having to compile. And it's just, okay, you haven't compartmented these things in your brain, and if you can't do that, then this will not make you happy ever.
It looks like Smart Edit is PC only.
Oh. I have not worked with Smart Edit, so...
It sounded really good, and then it's like Windows only.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, well.
So
I guess that was their answer to both Word and Scrivener.
Yeah.
So you just need a virtual PC partition on your Mac if you want to use that.
Sure.
Yeah, screw that.
So you write in document format, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
I do. I'm talking to Doc. I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm sorry?
So you don't actually end up writing in document format. It eventually gets there.
In Scrivener, I just write the story. It stores it as plain text.
Okay.
And when I need a manuscript to send out to somebody, I do a compile, and that lets me apply a template to how it shows up for pages.
Yeah.
And there's a template for manuscript for people doing edits. There's a template for going into Vellum if I'm going to do book layouts. There's a bunch of different templates for different things.
That's super handy. That's definitely super handy. I know I had a whole discussion with my dad, who I just finished a beta read for, about why he never writes in manuscript format. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, so here's the first result under manuscript format done by people from conventions. Why didn't you ever look at this? Because I thought it was just a preference. And then like every single document he sends me though is in this format. And it's 1.5 spacing with double him hitting enter twice between paragraphs.
Gross.
I know. I'm like, why do and he doesn't have page numbers turned on. I'm like, I don't care about the header stuff, like which you should have on there, but
Which you should have
page numbers would be nice. And he's like, oh well, I add that stuff before I send it out. Like, I want page numbers.
I want page numbers.
So
if he send it to you and it doesn't have page numbers, he doesn't add them before he sends it out.
Yeah. So he did give me excellent, like he loved my beta read feedback. He thought it was super handy. I don't know how much of it he's actually going to follow, but I did give it to him. So any mistakes are his and not mine. Just saying. But yeah, I finished my dad's beta read last week, so I'm totally into prep, and I do not have time to beta read anything else before Nano though. So yeah, I was mentioning that I'd finished my beta read, and he thinks I can be professional.
Oh,
he's biased, I know, but Sako said the same thing, so maybe
I think you should be a professional editor.
Oh, the hustle game
developmental specifically, like.
Thank you.
I know you can do line edits and stuff like that, but
I think I can do line edits. I cannot do copy edits. I'm not 100% on punctuation and commas and stuff, but I can tell you if your sentence is not working.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe for the audience, a developmental editor works with like plot holes and pacing and emotional arcs and that sort of thing. A line editor tells you if your sentences make sense in order and if you missed something or dropped a word or whatever. And then a copy editor is somebody who makes sure that everything is spelled correctly, that you're using the same version of gray throughout the whole manuscript and that sort of thing, and commas and all of
which means I do all three.
Yeah. So I do some copy editing, but definitely more line to developmental.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's where I'm the weakest.
Yeah.
I think I'm strongest with copy, and then I'll do line and then developmental. Sure. But I got to walk away from the story for a long time to be able to look at it with fresh eyes.
I hear you. So. I know we're going over. Do people have dinner to get to, or do we want to keep chatting?
I have another 15 minutes.
Okay. Let's go for another couple minutes, and then we'll start winding down. So,
man, I keep sipping from an empty cup. It is sad.
Oh, that's so sad. Why don't you get a refill?
I think I might.
Okay. Oh, So I know Des is active in the local Nano community, and Sarah's community sounds sad. I'm sorry.
I think what happened is that looking back, I think there used to be a city one and an Illinois elsewhere.
Sure.
And because the city one wasn't terribly active, I joined both, and I think the city one died.
Gotcha.
So I'm only on Illinois elsewhere now. Which is, in Illinois, there is a lot of, like, farmland.
Yeah, yeah. It makes sense to do virtual if people are 200 miles away or 50 miles.
Right. Or even if you have to get up at 4 a.m. to tend to your cows. Like, I'm just not doing it. Not driving into the city for this.
Yeah.
Illinois elsewhere sounds like an excellent name for a contemporary fantasy.
It's probably a horror just coming from the inside out there.
You mean it isn't one?
That's what I'm saying. Is Illinois is a horror. We're special over here. We got like a third of the slasher movies are here.
Oh wow.
Oh, when you talk about horror, I was thinking Ohio. So.
Well, I was born in Ohio, and I've had a long-running joke that the grass man is trying to bring me back. I don't trust him.
But you had a stint in Manassas, which is where
I did have a stint in Manassas. I did.
So
Yep, that's where I lived in 1st and 2nd grade. So
So
it's a
you
very
don't
long
remember
time
too
ago,
much.
but I remember it.
a little. So Doc, how is your local Nano community?
There actually does seem to be a pretty active Maryland group, but I have to admit that I have not really taken a huge part of it.
Sure.
I'm in the Discord server, but I don't really get. That's part of why I was asking why you go to the in-person events, because I don't really get the point of, okay, I have to pack up my laptop and take it with me to go to an in-person event where I will set up my laptop and people will ignore me while they write. And I will ignore them while they write. It's like, I could do
fresh
this.
snacks.
But it doesn't work that way.
See, the joke's on you because I don't own a laptop. So there's no setup needed for me.
Yeah, there's new snacks. There's talking to people about what projects they're working on. And sometimes you can be like, hey, can somebody help me with whatever, what do I need for this next scene? Or
they used to do it at the really good Mexican restaurant. Now they don't do it at all. So I would go and I would get tacos and
yeah.
Now, see,
there's
that
tacos.
would be a draw. So apparently they're not advertising it properly.
Right?
I like the night long.
I want the 24-hour. They didn't do it last year, or I was out of town for it.
They didn't do it because pandemic things.
Yeah. We got to do it this year.
We got to do it this year.
Yeah, if nothing else,
So all night long, it's from 7 to 7 or something like that.
I don't make it past 2 because it's usually on a weeknight.
I try real hard until the 7 a.m. clock out time.
I'll go to midnight or 2 a.m., but I can't do the whole thing because I have work the next day.
Oh, there's also that. Yeah.
Stupid day jobs.
Stupid day job. Yeah, and I'm pretty slim on vacation time right now.
Is that one in person or is that online?
It's
in
been
person at IHOP.
Yeah, I think it was the one in Ruston last time they had it.
Mm-mm.
Where was it?
There was one in Dumfries.
Okay, I did get that one.
And 3 of them were in Fairfax.
Yeah. So yeah, I've definitely been to 2 different places, but it's usually an IHOP, and we bring a power cord and people talk about what they're working on. And my last 4 or 5 nanos have been 90% written in writing sprints. I don't know what I would do without writing sprints for getting my words out. They're amazing.
Yeah. Writing sprints are the best part of Nano when more than one person is doing them.
Yeah. Do you compete against other people? Do you try to be ooh, can I do more words than Des this round? Or are you, for me, I feel like I'm competing against myself. In a regular sprint, I can get between 300 and 500 words. A couple times I've hit 700, and that was amazing. Sometimes I hit 7 words, and that means I need to focus. But I usually use it to check my pacing, my own pacing. I don't know. How do other people use sprints?
I mean, I will compare myself to CJ and stuff, to Troller, but only for trolling.
I miss CJ. How is she?
She's doing really well. She's just teaching a lot of piano lessons. That's
yeah.
what she does most.
I used to hang out with Sarah on her Friday night stream when she was doing some sprints on Friday nights with CJ and Dana.
Long time.
Right. We did it for what, 2 years? I was with y'all for 2 years, and you were doing it for much longer.
Yeah, it was a long run, and then I just got tired, and nobody. And there was another Friday stream too, and I was like, you know what? I don't have to do it on Friday. Somebody else is doing it on Friday.
Yeah.
I don't know who it is though, because they're not as cool as you.
I don't know who it is either, honestly. And I don't know if they're actually still.
Oh, I think we have a cat.
I think we have mandatory cat content. It could be a dog. Hard to tell at this.
Whose tail did we?
It's a cat. He's got a massive. He's trying to get into my snacks.
Oh, that's a respectable decision.
Oh, look at that.
Oh my goodness. Is that just a muted orange tabby?
Yeah, he's a weird. He's got short fur on his body, but his tail is like super long for a cat.
Oh my
tail.
gosh, that's the floofiest tail. Oh my
That
gosh.
is
just
the
so
goofiest cat.
It was funny when he was a kitten. He would puff it out a lot, and it would be like double his body size. He'd be like a squirrel.
Oh,
That's cute.
so. Whew. So, Doc, do you like sprints?
Yeah, sprints have been very helpful for me, especially when I'm having trouble to get back into writing.
Yeah.
And doing this stream and doing sprints with you and Sako has been very helpful for me to get projects moving along after I've been stalled.
I'm so glad. But you've been editing for a lot of them. And I know I struggle with sprints and editing because sometimes I need longer chunks for editing.
Yeah.
Has that messed with your flow any?
Not so much. It's more the fact that having the appointment to sit down and talk and do sprints gets me to do it. I know in other times when I've been trying to get stuff done, like if I miss a stream, then I'll come back later in the week and pull up the stream and play it and then write during the sprints.
Nice.
So it's like, so reruns are always useful for those days when you don't have anyone to sprint with.
Nice.
But I know that. Oh,
I guess you got your cat.
Somebody bit my foot. Not hard, just no. I wasn't expecting it.
Okay, so that's a catechus sighting then.
Evidence of a catechus.
Evidence of catechus, yes. Proof of catechus. What I have found that actually works nicely for me for Nano is that I've had a bunch of leave since lockdown in 2020.
Sure.
So that means I can spend a bunch of leave in November to take a week off.
Nice.
And during that time, I still get up in the morning. I don't sleep in late, and I come down and I write as if writing was my job.
Nice.
And instead of doing the 1,700 words for Nano, I do 2,500 words, and that's the rate for doing a Nano if you only write 5 days a week.
That's my hope, but
yeah,
I rarely make that goal.
And well, that's the retirement goal, is that when I'm writing full time after I'm retired from my day job, that I will write Monday through Friday. I will take weekends off, but I know that my rate is 2,500 words a day.
Sure.
And I can usually do that pretty easy.
That's nice.
So for Nano, doing that during Nano, if I also do the 2,500 on the weekends, even if I have a bad first week, once I hit that week of vacation, I can make it up and I can get ahead.
Nice.
So that's one of my secret tricks for Nano.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, gorgeous floof.
So I love sprints.
Yeah,
I like to use sprints for Flash. I get the most out of my sprint if I'm doing Flash fiction, because I'll do it in one sprint, and it better be final draft right out of the gate. So, like, it's a great exercise for when I'm writing my novels.
So we'll be off in just a minute. Do you have something to? Sorry, my cat is
being a hellion.
Yeah, I like sprints for mine because mine has a lot of sort of science-based world building, and I can get hung up on trying to make it seem realistic. So if I'm in a sprint, then I don't get stuck on some little thing I can research later. I can, I push
Exactly.
through.
I'll like highlight or put in parentheses. I'll make it bold or something like that so that I know to go back and plug stuff in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me it's the breaks that help with the sprinting. That because I have no problem sitting down and writing for like an hour straight, but if I get stuck, I feel like I've run out, and having those built-in breaks kind of helps reset the brain. It's like, yeah, now I've got to get up, I've got to do something else, and then give me some time to come back to it.
Yeah. I find I will refresh water. I will, wonder about what happens next. But like if I go more than about 25 minutes, I start checking my Facebook notifications or whatever,
Yeah.
So that's about as long as I can stay super focused unless it's super flying. Like, those of you who have been around on my stream for a while, sometimes, hey, let's just go back into another sprint. I got to get my words out. That's when it's flowing. When it's not flowing, I'll be chatting a little bit more.
Yeah.
But we are coming up on 7, and I remembered I have roommates who might want dinner.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and give our outros. Tell people where they can find us, and if you're going to be doing Nano stuff, if you're going to be doing other stuff online, just tell them what you've been up to and where they can find you. So let's start with Sako, and we'll go in a weird order.
All right. Howdy, neighbors. I'm Sako Tumi, also known as Cass Voit. I write horror, and I'm a witch, and I'm a graphic designer. Sometimes I combine those three things. I will be streaming every day in November, ?
Okay.
So check out my YouTube channel, Sako Tumi Cass Voit, one word. And I'm sure we'll cross paths.
Awesome. Okay, let's go to Des.
I'm Desdemona Rose, spelled out. I have Blue Sky that I'm sort of active on. If you look up Talitha, Talitha Harbor it'll pop up the World Anvil page. Like you can just Google it, and it'll pop up. And then I recently started a Twitch account, which is also Desdemona Rose, I think. But it's very new, and I'm still working out all the bugs. So, but it'll be for writing sprints, and then after Nano is over, some world building sprints for December and World Ember on World Anvil, and then some artsy streams at some points because I also draw and mixed media and stuff.
Sure. Okay, Sarah.
I'm Sarah Sharnover. I'm Wordsmith Sarah basically everywhere. I am on Twitch on Mondays and Thursday nights playing video games. Frequently it's Phasmophobia because I like spooky stuff. And then I don't know what I'm doing for NaNoWriMo, so I guess just find me places under Wordsmith Sarah and I'll appear. And then the first, third, and fifth Wednesday of every month, I'm on the Onyx Path Publishing's Twitch channel playing D&D. So that is at 8 p.m. Central, the first, third,
that is super rad.
Wednesday. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's super exciting. It's a lot of fun. And it started as like an all-girl game, and it has morphed into like this whole other thing. So, but it's still a game. I still roll dice, and sometimes I die.
Excellent. Doc?
Okay, I am Doc Coleman. I write about mad science, manners, and mayhem. If you're interested in finding out more about me and my writing, you can go to your favorite search engine and search on Doc Coleman Steampunk, and that will help you find my my website at doccoleman.com. Should also help you find my Amazon author page where you can see all of my published works. And if you're interested in following me for NaNoWriMo, just go to the NaNoWriMo site and search for Scalesley. That's spelled Scales, Lea. Going to be probably will end up starting slow and then pick up speed, but want to see about getting a solid start on a new novel.
Awesome. Okay. And let's see, popping into comments real quick. Keith says, your kitty looks like a Turkish band cat. Sako's looking for a basic editor program, and Keith's Floof is named Slick and has a long hair tuxedo.
Nice.
And Jen thinks that Desdemona's Floof is gorgeous. So I'm your host, Morgan Hazelwood. I blog, vlog, and podcast, writing tips from the pros, and my own writerly musings. This week on the podcast, writing tips and writerly musings, I was talking about what does that form rejection actually mean? And over on the YouTube and the blog this week, I was talking about my favorite tools for starting a novel. I wonder why I was thinking about those this week. And my author spotlight guest was the one and only Keith R.A. DeCandido, who writes a lot of tie-in media fiction. He does Star Trek, he does Star Wars, he does Supernatural, and he has his own series, including Cassie Sukoff, Weirdness Magnet, who is one of the, I can't pronounce it, sees the future Norse mythology people in the modern world, and she lives in Key West and is a scuba instructor. So she plays a lot with the Norse gods, and it's a series of short stories, and he's got most of them on his YouTube because he does. Are you
thinking of a Norn?
Norn, thank you. Yes.
There we go.
But anyway, he's got lots of really good stuff. And yeah, the science fiction club that I volunteer for is having a NaNoWriMo launch party on Zoom and in person on Wednesday at 7 to 10 p.m. So I'll be helping host the virtual portion of that because I'm not driving to Baltimore ever. I mean, except for our annual convention. So go to bsfs.org, which is Baltimore Science Fiction Society, if you want to hang out with me then, after I finish handing out candy to the kids, because I'm excited. Halloween is coming. Yeah, so that's what I've been up to, and I will be doing probably some pop-up productivity sprints, mostly on weeks that my roommate does not have a kid, or after 9 p.m. So, kid goes to bed at 9. Doesn't matter what I do after that, right? So have a great NaNoWriMo. If you're not participating, no judgment. We're not all writers. NaNoWriMo is not for everyone. But if it works for you, lean into it. That's, why I'm a snack-based writer. So have a great week. Have a wonderful Halloween if you celebrate. And if not, I'll be back again next week. So catch you later. Bye-bye. Oh, wait, I should do the raid thing.
Oh yeah, that raid thing.
Somebody's writing superstar Sean Arnold. So sure, we'll do that one. They have one person, but I haven't been to their channel. I hope they're lots of fun. Let's go say hi. And okay, the rest of you have a great week and happy Halloween. Bye.